Welcome to the TTS Talking Educators podcast. Each week we'll be joined by educational experts from across the globe offering exclusive insights, inspiration and guidance to help practitioners unlock the potential for learning in the early years and the primary years. Hello, my name is Mark Loveday, your host for this week's TTS Talking Educators podcast. I'm the headmaster of Fruin College, an independent co-educational day and boarding school for students aged 7 to 19, specialising in dyslexia and co-occurring specific learning difficulties. I'm a specialist teacher, an SLE, specialist leader of education for SEND, and have taught across primary, secondary and sixth form in both mainstream and specialist settings, holding a variety of leadership roles. I've previously set up and led SEND advisory teaching services, been responsible for the creation of diagnostic pathways for dyslexia, dyscalculia and dyspraxia, and created and led an alternative provision for students experiencing emotional-based school avoidance, which went on to win Alternative Provision of the Year in 2023. I'm also a board director for the SBLD Assessment Standards Committee, known as SASC, a trustee of a multi-academy trust, and I'm a national and international speaker. Throughout the series, we'll be discussing a range of topics aimed at supporting SEN in primary settings, inspiring you with guidance and resources to enhance your practice. I'm delighted to welcome back Emma Jordan as today's guest. Welcome back, Emma. How are you on this? What is a really wonderfully sunny day?
It's wonderfully sunny.
I'm
really well, thanks, Mark.
Good. Really nice to see you again. In this episode, we'll be learning how to address social communication challenges. So, let's start by opening up the kind of conversation really is, what are social communication challenges? Big topic.
Social communication is quite a broad term, isn't it, Mark? In terms of, and there are different definitions of what we mean by social communication skills. But if we think about pragmatics and social use of language, what we're really talking about is how we use the language skills that we've got to communicate with other people, to have conversations, to manage a conversation, to stay on topic in a conversation, to introduce and to end a conversation. It's about using both our verbal skills, so our language, and our non-verbal skills, our facial expressions or gestures, to add meaning to what we're saying. It's about making sure that we understand what the other person knows and what they don't know, how much information we need to give them, how much information they already know, recalling past conversations that we've had so that the conversation makes sense. It's all of those skills to do with having conversations and using your language skills effectively so that you can socially interact with other people.
Absolutely, and I think that's brilliantly summarised on what really is a really wide-ranging topic there. So, if we think about developing those skills and kind of supporting any challenges that practitioners might identify in their settings, let's start with early years. What would we expect to see, or the challenges that our little people might present with, and what can be done about it?
I think social use of language and using your language is what can drive your language development, because you're developing language, words and sentences in order to be able to comment on something, share something, request something, say when you need something, say when you don't like something, say when you'd like something again, say when you need something, all of that. So those functions of language. So even in very, very early stages of development, what we're looking for are different reasons for communication. And whether that's using words, or whether it's using gesture or using pointing or another way of communicating, or showing. You're looking for that range of skills, but you're also looking for that early to and fro, so that reciprocal turn taking and early turn taking in order to have the start of a conversation. So you're waiting for someone to respond and then you are responding yourself. So you're looking at and those skills are, I know we'll come on to this in another session, but those skills are really linked to play, aren't they? Goes hand in hand.
Massively.
Hand in hand with play skills. You're developing those turn taking skills at the same time.
And I think we need to also be really aware that some of our little people coming through into those earlier settings may not have had that play opportunity. You think of the kind of the online world and the realm of electronics that we're in. So many of our young people may have just experienced things like, the tablets or an iPad. I mean, I think, you and I have often had the conversation around, youngsters now trying to flip across the screen when you present a book rather than turning a page.
Yeah, so we're seeing a difference, aren't we, in terms of the kind of play and the kind of interaction that young children are exposed to or given the opportunity to develop their early skills, and social communication skills is and social interaction and the conversational skills is all about that. It's about having a conversation. And us still finding opportunities to have conversations with each other when we haven't got technology around, when we're putting technology to the side. There's some interesting research about a very early development and learning your first words and learning language in the first 12 months and the impact that background noise can have on that. And it's a negative impact when you've got lots of background noise, because you've got to filter that noise out to hear language. But there's interesting research about the link between lots of background noise and the impact that has on the quality and the quantity of parent and child or adult-child interaction. So it's that very early adult-child and parent-child interaction and that to and fro from very, very early days. We're talking about babies upwards, that really makes the difference. And you're then supporting that very early stage of turn taking and looking and sharing attention and joint attention. That's the fundamentals for social communication skills.
It's kind of massive, isn't it? And it's also then thinking about those social communication skills, those language skills that then go forward in terms of developing those literacy-based skills. And quite often the impact that can have, at the end of Key Stage 1, for example, in terms of that attainment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, what drives language and what drives communication. You can argue it's communication skills that are driving your language development, and your play development. But as soon as you're into in nursery or in reception, you're wanting to use those language skills effectively to do lots of different things. You want to be able to negotiate a turn when you get out onto the playground. You want to be able to say, I need to go to the toilet. You want to be able to say what you'd like for snack. There are lots of opportunities, aren't there? And you need some language skills in order to be able to do that.
You do, and vice versa, those language skills to actually then interact with what, let's be honest, is a really fast-paced curriculum through the early years into year one. I think also that kind of importance of modelling that language, whether that be through the practitioners modelling the responses back, or through developing opportunities where we can get children together, such as role play, to develop those language skills.
Yeah, I mean, we all need to be a good role model, don't we? We want to be what we would like to see. So, if we're trying to teach children early listening skills, we need to be really good listeners ourselves. Sometimes, and we all do it when we're busy, sometimes you'll see adults hearing children read, and while they're hearing a child read, they're trying to do something else at the same time. It's a busy environment, but we really want to be a good role model in terms of those early conversational skills. So things like staying on topic and sticking to the topic and marking the start and the beginning of the topic of conversation so that we all know what we're talking about. Not interrupting, or if you do need to interrupt, how you go about doing that and doing it appropriately and waiting for a turn. Practicing waiting and waiting for a turn, not just to talk, but a turn in a game, and setting up opportunities to practice some of those skills so that everyone has the opportunity to contribute as well. Because in every cohort, we're going to have a mixture of children, aren't we? And some children are going to be far more boisterous and outspoken, and we're going to have some children who are a little more reluctant or underconfident with using their talking. So we want to give everybody an opportunity to participate and take part as they would like to. So yeah, it's about being a good role model, and it's about setting up real opportunities for those early communication skills. We don't want to be forcing situations that aren't really real. We want to be setting up real opportunities, and doing that through everyday things that happen, like snack time, setting up a real opportunity to make a choice, going outside into the outdoor learning area, setting up a real opportunity to do some lovely role play, for instance, or having things set up so that you can do some dressing up, but it's a real play experience. It's real and it's meaningful and it's play based for that child, rather than it being a kind of a forced situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we kind of move through those early years, because I mean, all of those things really work extremely well in an early years setting, and there is no reason. I think we have to be really clear on this. There is no reason why they can't work really well in a primary setting. But sadly, too often what we see is that all of a sudden you get to the end of reception, your early years kind of graduation, if you like. You're thrown into a year one class and you're expected to sit behind a desk for hours on end with an exercise book in front of you. And, that stifles any kind of a language development that we've really been trying to harness and grow in the early years. What can our practitioners and our teachers do to support that language development?
It's finding opportunities, isn't it, Mark? And it's finding opportunities for within the curriculum for speaking and listening. And it would be great to see a bigger focus on speaking and listening back within the national curriculum. I mean, every teacher knows, and no one stopped teaching speaking and listening skills, but it doesn't stand out, does it, in terms of how we used to have a very specific curriculum for speaking and listening and giving those opportunities for speaking and listening. So it's about taking that opportunity to for small group work, for partner talk, for exploring new vocabulary, exploring new words across the curriculum. I mean, the vocabulary in particular, what a great opportunity there is within the whole of the curriculum to develop vocabulary skills and expose children to a broad range of vocabulary skills and really understand the meaning of new words, and having opportunities to have some hands-on learning experiences through, whether it's through, real life, when people, often schools have visitors in, don't they, for things like, Roman Day or whatever it is, having some real life experience of something, or school trips or forest school, or real hands-on practical experience, because we know language develops through that real experience. You've got to feel it, touch it, see it, experience it to really understand what a word means. So it's finding these. Lots of schools have brilliant outside areas with lots of different opportunities. I think lunchtime is a missed opportunity. Lots of children at lunchtime actually want a break, and some children want a break from social interaction. And I think that's absolutely fine. But children who want to interact or want to play a game sometimes don't know how to go about doing that, or there might not be facilitated playground games on the playground that they can be part of. It's bringing back some of those quite old-fashioned playground games that are quite language-based and repetitive, where you can take turns, and that are facilitated by an adult. That's just great practice, isn't it? Just really great practice.
And it's modelling it, isn't it? Rather than just saying, "Oh, here's a buddy bench. You can go and sit on that buddy bench," but actually, what does that actually teach you? That life skill, apart from going, "Oh, they're sat on the buddy bench." Lovely, don't get me wrong. But actually, what we really need to be doing is, how can you engage with your peers? How can you interact? Like you say, bringing back those really enjoyable games into the playground. But again, having that adult there to lead those and upskilling kind of our lunchtime workforce, really.
I think we can all think back, can't we, to our own childhoods and games that we used to like to play. And board games that we used to like to play as well. We, as a service, at Christmas time across our social media, we do ideal Christmas gifts for games, speaking and listening games for primary and for secondary and for early years, because those early games that you can play at home or you can play at school are just really crucial in terms of practicing different skills and word games. There are lots of opportunities. I think it's about using often just what you've got. You don't actually need equipment half the time. It's just using what you've got.
Absolutely.
But you need some ideas. I think lots of us have forgotten some of these games because we've not used them for quite some time.
And I think the whole world is now, let's be honest, iPads and tablets, isn't it? I think sometimes we need to just take a step back. And, when you do introduce those, I know when, certainly we have it here at Throne, and certainly we've used them, I've used them previously in previous roles. You get that initial, what's this type of game? It's not electronic, but actually the children and the young people really engage with it and really enjoy it. And it does break down those social barriers between them, because there's that kind of united link, as well as all the wonderful language and listening opportunities that it provides. The other thing I just want to really touch on to finish is around this idea of pre-teaching language, because, we've got a very complex curriculum in schools, and it does step up quite significantly, doesn't it, from Key Stage 1 onwards. But if children don't have the vocabulary or the language skills, they're not going to be able to access the curriculum. And that's pretty obvious. But how do we go about those pre-teaching of that language skill?
Yeah, it's identifying what you need to pre-teach, isn't it? Whether you're going for concepts or vocabulary, or if it's pre-teaching another aspect of the curriculum delivery. But vocabulary is a crucial one, because if you're familiar with the vocabulary, you're going to understand. If you're less familiar with the vocabulary, or if you're a child who does have a specific difficulty learning language and learning new vocabulary. So we know children with language disorder need to hear new words many more times than children who don't have language disorder. They need to hear it many times. They need to be exposed to it. They need to be exposed explicitly to what that word means, the sounds in that word. So the more times that children are exposed to vocabulary or concepts before they face those concepts and that vocabulary within the curriculum, the better. But it's got to be targeted, and it needs to be focused, and you need to be choosing the right words. So, and there's lots of ways that and different approaches that are out there that you can use, and interventions that can support that. And we definitely use pre-teaching vocabulary, and there are ideas for doing that on our website, and free resources that people can download if they want to, for how you can introduce different vocabulary and ways of introducing new words and structuring that.
Really useful. I have to say, one of my favourites is the word square, about how to think it would look. And I think that, that is brilliant. And again, that's freely available from your website. But equally thinking about just hearing those words and seeing those words in context as well. Things like just talk tins or sound buttons, where we can actually record that word and put it to a visual. So this is what the word sounds like. This is what the word looks like. And then you can go into what does the word feel like, and get into the real multi-sensory teaching. But thank you. I mean, again, it's another topic I know you and I could talk about for hours, but thank you for that. And I think there's lots of fantastic takeaways there. Let's go back to those basics. Let's bring in those games. Let's model that. Let's introduce that language. But Emma, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you for joining us today and providing those valuable insights. I know your website's got fantastic resources on, and I really recommend those highly. You've been listening to the TTS Talking Educators podcast with me, Mark Loveday, and Emma Jordan. If you've been inspired by our conversation today, don't forget you can sign up via the link in our episode notes to be the first to hear about future episodes and access exclusive follow-up content, including ideas for your settings and links to relevant resources.